everybody, it's Jenny, and today I'm sharing my project for the July box of the month from Not Too Shabby. You can find links for the products used in the description box below that'll take you to the Not Too Shabby shop. And for more inspiration using this month's kit, as well as some full unboxing videos, you can check out the hashtag N2S Summertime Coffee. For my project today, I'm going to be making some altered paper clips. And I'm going to be using both collections from the kit, the Summer Coffee as well as the Make It Iced Please. And I'm going to start by heat embossing some of the sentiments from each of the stamp sets onto some coordinating colored cardstock. I'm going to start by using my powder tool and just running that across the front of my cardstock. And then I'm going to stamp out my sentiments using some Versamark ink and then heat emboss that with some white detail embossing powder. I wasn't exactly sure which sentiments I wanted to use, so I just stamped out a bunch on each of the colors of cardstock so that I could just trim them out and have them set aside, ready to use. So once everything is nice and melted, I'm just going to take a microfiber cloth to wipe away any extra of the anti-static powder. And then I'm just going to set those aside for now and bring in my paper clips. So these paper clips are huge. They're 4 inches long, and I'm going to use the white one with the Summer Coffee collection and the black one with the Make It Iced Please. So when I pulled these collections out, I had this scrap piece that happened to work perfectly for this little bow. So I'm just going to trim that out with my die cuts and then assemble it. So next I'm going to pick out the pattern paper for my main banner piece that will make up the base of the altered paper clip. And I'm just going to trim down that 6x6 piece to 2 3/4 and then leave it 6 inches long. And then I'm going to take my scoreboard and score that at 4 inches and 4 1/8. And that extra little space that I just scored is going to be where I fold the paper over the paper clip. So next I'm going to mark the center as well as about 1 inch up, and then I'm going to cut that into a banner shape. Then I thought I would bring in a border die to add a little something to that straight edge on the piece that I'm folding over. Next, I wanted to add a little more texture, so I brought in some tulle and I'm just going to trim off a piece and lay that across the front under the piece that I'm folding over. And to secure that, I'm going to add some double-sided tape and then trim off the excess. And next I'm going to add in my paper clip and then glue down the flap. Next, to build up the front of my paper clip, I'm going to bring in 2 tiny little rosettes I made with some crepe paper and another piece of pattern paper, and I'm just taking a circle die from my stash to trim that out. Then I'm going to bring in the ephemera and start playing around with all the elements. Once I had my ephemera pieces picked out, I chose the sentiment "Rise and Shine, it's coffee time," and then I'm going to bring in one more piece of pattern paper and add an additional banner to the back. And for that banner, I'm going to trim down my pattern paper to 1 3/4 by 4 inches. And again, I'm going to mark the center and then about a 1/2 inch up to create my flag shapes. Before I started gluing everything down, the tool at the bottom where I trimmed it off was sticking up a bit, and because I didn't want to add double-sided tape where it would show, I took some liquid glue and just added a dot to each tail of the banner shape, and then used the release paper from the double-sided tape to hold down and smush out that glue until it dried. Next, I used a combination of hot glue, liquid glue, and foam tape to attach everything together. Then I brought in some flat back pearls and used the largest one to embellish the center of my bow, and then added a few more across the front. And for the final embellishment, I added a cute little charm that I made to coordinate with the colors in this paper collection. I'm just going to slip that onto the paper clip. And that finishes up my first embellished paper clip, and then I'm going to move on to the next paper collection. So this next one came together very similarly. I started by picking out the base, trimming it down, and adding my little border edge. Before I cut the flag shape into my banner piece, I wanted to lay down my tool and add that extra liquid glue at the bottom and then let it fully dry. I just thought it would be easier to do this before I cut it so that I wouldn't be trying to glue down 2 little flaps. I could just glue down one piece and then cut the flag shape. Then, instead of a circle like I used on the first one, I brought in this different shaped die and played around with a couple different pattern papers until I found one that I liked. Next, I picked out another piece of paper to add that second banner to the back. And then to match this collection, I brought in some white crepe paper to make a tiny rosette. I also wanted to add a bow to this one as well, so I chose the yellow dotted paper and trimmed that out with my bow die. Next, I brought in the ephemera, and I had quite a hard time picking which pieces I wanted to use on the front of this, just because of the way it was looking when I was laying them out. I just really loved that cup with the yum straw, but it looked too empty, and when I tried to add another piece of ephemera, it wasn't looking right. But eventually, after playing around with it long enough, I figured something out that I liked. Again, I used foam tape, hot glue, and liquid glue and started to glue things together. At the last second, I changed my mind and brought in this other girl ephemera, and I think that it just really worked. Then for this one, instead of using pearls, I brought in some black rhinestones, and I really wanted to add one to the center of this bow, but it just wasn't quite big enough and I thought it looked a little weird. So I ended up not embellishing the center of the bow and adding some extra rhinestones across the front. And finally, I made another coordinating charm for this paper collection and slid that onto the paper clip. If anyone is interested in seeing a separate video on how I made my charms, just go ahead and let me know in the comments below. This video is getting a bit too long to include that as well. But here are my finished embellished paper clips. I absolutely love them. They were so fun to make, and these paper collections are just so super cute. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!